Hi, I'm Jonathon Wright, Chief Technologist for Eggplant, part of the Keysight family. So one of the biggest challenges, especially with the introduction of more fintech and digital banking, is customers moving away, and this could be a number of different factors around digital experience. It could be performance components of how long they're waiting around stuff. Maybe it's lack of functionality or features that other banks or other disruptors are doing. And part of it is really trying to understand and measure that in a more of a customer experience, unified customer experience kind of viewpoint. So what does that really mean? Well, it means that they need to understand what their users are doing. So there needs to be some analytics stuck on top of that to say, okay, we're seeing certain banking, certain behaviors happening, and therefore we want to maybe encourage or not encourage other ones. We need to understand when we're potentially losing engagement with our end customers. So how do we make sure that they are using us and they're not going to move to a competitor? So a lot of this is really blurring the boundaries of what was traditional IT with customer experience techniques to really be able to give you better insight into what your customers are doing and make sure you're not losing them to rivals or competitors with new and shiny functionality. So yeah, I think one of the hard challenges here is the difference between a positive and a negative experience is context. And so therefore, just because users maybe are trying to make a payment and they're not able to make a payment, does that mean that they're going to re-engage? And I think part of it is the funnel isn't as straightforward as saying it's a hit and run. It's something that where someone's coming in, they're going to then offboard themselves and go somewhere else. It's actually understanding a number of chains that they have, a number of buyer behaviors, and be able to bring them together to understand, well, what are those touch points? Are they still making the transactions that are expected? Are they still able to do the end-to-end process that it's doing? Or do we need to do a hybrid model where they're ringing up plus they're using their mobile and also online banking, and behaviors change, and you need to be able to, in essence, bring half of the journey that might be the desktop web browser with half of the other journey, which might be mobile, as well as the in-person banking, and bring that together to create a much more accurate picture of your end customer experience. And those digital interactions will give you a better blueprint into the digital natives that are using banking on a daily basis, and you can but also predict when potentially you're starting to lose people during bank holiday maintenance windows, areas where they're not actually able to do the activities they need to do, or even when there's crash analytics and there's things going wrong, and what does that actually mean, and how do we investigate that and make sure it's resolved so that user can do a successful transaction. So a lot more insight, a lot more observability, which we never had before, but also potentially the other side of this, which is how do we make sure that they are positive experiences, and obviously things like social media analytics. Let's try and reduce those negative impacts and really try and quickly turn those around as incidents, so we're continuously monitoring the overall health of our customer base. So what we're seeing is a shift to what we internally refer to as real user testing. So I think partly a lot of previous systems would use synthetic monitoring. So typically they would check in a morning or check on every hour that a transaction could be done, and that might just be a dummy test that they run in the back end, but doesn't replicate what an actual real user is doing. So a real user may, for instance, have an authenticator on their app. They might have some type of two-factor authentication that needs to go through. And you might be finding that actually your upstream provider, someone like a phone provider, isn't sending through that code, and that is actually delaying the system. But without doing it as a real user, i.e. looking on a real device, doing the two-factor authentication with a real phone number that's associated with it, seeing what those timeouts are like, and actually saying, okay, actually we're getting really busy, people are waiting 10-15 minutes for codes, actually that's now timing out. We're really shifting the way to what we refer to as a new product called unified performance monitoring. So really understanding real journeys, real people on real devices doing real transactions that are in the eyes of a real human being. So, I think this is where we're changing the way from just, proving that the lights are still on and everything's going on to, okay, now we know that different types of Android or Apple devices, maybe there's an update for an Apple OS with a new app store rollout for your banking app, combining those together to actually be more realistic. So I think there's a big shift towards smarter testing and also, failing early. So really understanding when a particular version or as end of life of an Android phone is no longer working with the banking app and catching it earlier than just waiting for a whole stack of failed transactions. So definitely a shift in being more preventative, but also being more, testing better. So I think you're going to start seeing a lot more where people are bringing data from multiple sources to enrich it. So where we used to have referred to as something like a data lake of information coming from maybe CRM and ERP systems, which you could marry up to try and provide better customer insight. I think what you're going to start seeing is what we refer to as Delta lake houses. Now, what data lake houses are in essence is, we know, especially from a GDPR perspective, is that we can't use personal identifiable information, can't use anything that might be customer sensitive. So with a Delta, it's just a subset of information, but it's actually making that logic or that core kind of referential integrity useful for machine learning. So therefore, they can train their algorithms to do smarter things, but not on actual real user data. But actually a subset, a delta of that subset that they can use for this next generation of training. So that might be virtual assistants, that might be virtual banking, clerks, and part of it is they can start building these next generation systems without being reliant on, not having enough data or not having enough journeys to be able to create more realistic transactions. So yeah, Delta lake houses are going to be really interesting on bringing the whole CX vision together, and then being able to do more with that data and insights to give better experiences